it's Betsy, and today we're gonna go over the palettes that I used for February, what I think of them, and I actually have one that I'm going to declutter. So we'll go over that one first. Now, if you don't know what I'm doing, I've been trying to keep track of the palettes that I'm using each month and thinking about the things that I like, and that way it is easier to declutter things that I don't like. And on top of that, it makes me where I use my collection, because if you don't know, I have over 100 eyeshadow palettes, which is a ton. But eyeshadow is one of my favorite things. I love to play with different colors. If you've been watching me for a while, you will know I do all kinds of colorful looks. I'm not a beige kind of eyeshadow person. So with that being said, some of the things that I've used this month are absolutely amazing, and some of them, I'm like, why have I held on to it? And one of those things I'm like, why have I held on to, is the Marc Jacobs iconic 770, the wild one. Now I think this one was the 2018 Christmas palette. It looks something like this, and I've used it quite a bit, but I'm really not as impressed as I was when I first got it with how it performed. So I am going to be decluttering it, and I think one of the reasons why I did hold on to it for so long is because it was an expensive palette. When I purchased this, this was a $99 palette. Marc Jacobs makeup is not inexpensive, and I just don't love it like I used to. So that one is getting decluttered. Now we'll go over the palettes that I used once this month, which number one was the Melt Cosmetics Gemini palette. It looks something like this. I have used this palette a ton. This is one of my favorite, actually my favorite Melt Cosmetics eyeshadow palette. I love these grungy greens. I like grungy, dirty 90s kind of eye looks. That's one of my favorite kind of eye styles, and this is just completely my aesthetic. This is not going anywhere. I love, love, love this palette. Number two is another Melt palette, which is, this is a new one. This one just came out. This is the Millenial Pinks palette, and it looks like this. I have used this once so far, and I love the matte formula in here. Melt has a excellent matte eyeshadow formula, but the shimmers were actually a little lackluster in comparison to other Melt palettes. And I'll kind of show you. We'll go ahead and swatch. This is Ruby Spark. So this is one of their shimmers. Pretty, not as shiny as I'm used to. And then we'll go back to the Gemini and we'll swatch this green color called Goals. And you can see the pigmentation difference, plus how shimmery that color Goals is in comparison to the Millenial Pinks. Now I am gonna hold on to that Millenial Pinks palette because, again, I do like the matte formula in here. It's just the shimmers that were a little bit lackluster for me. But if you don't have it, it is kind of expensive. It's $54, and especially since I'm only using half the palette, I would not recommend it. Now, another new palette that I purchased, this one I purchased at the end of January, was the ABH Noir Vina. This is one of their mini ones, and this is the Mini Pro Pigment Palette Volume 3, or the Cherry palette. The outside packaging is absolutely adorable, and I love the inside color scheme to it. The blues and greens are gorgeous. The reds are nice and pigmented. This glitter shade up here is stunning. So I will be holding on to this. I really am very impressed with the Anastasia Beverly Hills, the Noir Vina palettes. I love the mattes in there, and the shimmers too. They're very, very good. Another palette that I used this month was the Urban Decay Born to Run palette, which looks like this on the inside. Which, this is a great eyeshadow palette for those grungy looks. It has some really good neutrals, plus it also has some really nice pops of color. Urban Decay makes them very easy to work with eyeshadows. The shimmers are pretty. They're nothing to write home about, but this overall is a good palette. And I used that one once. I used the Colorpop Just My Luck palette once this month. And I will open her up. And it looks like this. Colorpop has, in my opinion, for inexpensive eyeshadow palettes, the best inexpensive eyeshadows. I mean, for the most part, Colorpop, I love their formula and I will continue using it. This green palette is great. I don't wear like grassy greens on my eyes a whole lot. I like the grungier greens, but this performs beautifully and it is a great palette. I also used my Colorpop Bye Bye Birdie palette, which looks like this. It is like a purpley, a warm tone purpley pink palette with some neutrals in here. This shade Gander right here is one of their Super Shock shadows. It is stunning as an inner corner highlight. See how pretty that is? I'm not sure if it's showing up on camera because sometimes under these lights it's very hard to see. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful palette. I love this. So that one is definitely staying in my collection. I also used my Biddy times Colorpop palette, which looks like this. Neutral purpley pink palette. It's a very good palette. Again, this shade Gummy Bear is beautiful for an inner corner highlight. It's like a peachy pink duochrome. The mattes perform beautifully. This one's a little bit more basic and I have these colors in my collection, but I still like the palette. Then I used the Colorpop Cosmetics Butter Me Up palette. This was one of the ones I think that was released at Ulta. Looks like this, purpley pink, beautiful nighttime palette. It is that grungy purple, like if you do your black. This Night Dream is like a matte with some glitter in it. Very, very pretty. And I just love the color scheme of this. So this one is definitely staying in my collection. I also used my Night Owl, which again, I think this one was a Ulta exclusive. This was one of their bird palettes. Looks like this. This is a great neutral palette. I mean, that's about as much as I can say about it. Very, very pretty. You can do several complete looks with this and keep it on the darker spectrum, or you can make, I mean, this is just a great all-around 9-pan palette. So, no complaints there. Now we're gonna go over the palettes I actually used more than once this month. These all I used twice this month. First is the Natasha Nona Love palette. Now, Natasha Nona, their palettes are on the pricier side. This palette was $65. But it's not as expensive as their palettes used to be, because they used to use really big eyeshadows and they would run you $129 for this amount of shades from them. This is a gorgeous purple pink palette. Love, love, love this palette. Love the way it performs. I've done 2 looks with it and I can't wait to use it more. Next up is another Melt palette, and that is the Melt Impulsive palette. This was a Sephora exclusive. It was $65 and it has 18 shades. And again, this is just the love of my 90s heart. I love how the mattes perform. The shimmers are gorgeous. I love pretty much everything about this palette. I just think it's absolutely stunning. I mean, the shimmers in here, let's do this Drunk Text gray. Look at that. Just the pigmentation on it is stunning. And I just love like the color Boss Lady and these pukey greens and yellows. Just a absolutely stunning palette. I used that one twice this month. And then last but not least, this is one of my newer palettes, but it is definitely a favorite. This is the Give Me Glow Vintage Rose palette. And I wanted it when it originally came out. It sold out. I saw Amy Loves Makeup talking about it, how it was back in stock, and I was like, well, I'll order it. I want to try that palette out. And I love every shade in here except for the color Blush Pink. They're all nice and pigmented as far as the mattes go. As you can see, nice and pigmented. It's just that Pepto-Bismol color. As you can, it is not my color. Pastels typically don't work on my complexion very well. Like the new Huda Beauty, the mint, rose, and lilac palettes are so cute, but I'm not gonna order them because they're not gonna work on my skin tone. That's not the kind of colors that work best for me. But this palette is stunning. Now, like this color Aged Rose Stem is like this beautiful sagey green. Let's swatch her. Look at that. That is just like so perfect and grungy. And one thing I do love about this is this shade right here, Blossom, is the closest I have found to the Pat McGrath Special Shades and an outside palette. And this palette runs for $34. With shipping it was $42. And I was so impressed by this eyeshadow palette, and I have used it twice already and can't wait to use it again, that I want to order more from this brand. They have a Christmas palette in the Juicy Olive that I want to order just because I loved this palette so much. It is an independent, and it is like an independent indie owned brand, and absolutely stunning. So let me know what you think of the eyeshadow palettes I used in February. Now remember, I was sick for 2 weeks, so I didn't get to use as many as I typically do, but again, I used a bunch. Love them. Know which ones I'm getting rid of. I actually have a lot of makeup that I've been pulling out slowly but surely from my collections that I'm ready to declutter and get rid of. Let me know what you think down below. Let me know what palettes you're loving this month, or for the month of February. Don't forget to like this video. Give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button right down below. I post new videos Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Don't forget to check me out on all my social media, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram. But I guess that's it, so we shall see y'all on Wednesday.